Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to discover you have been lied to your whole life? Today's story will break your heart, then heal it again. This is the true meaning of betrayal and why we must always trust our instincts. Stay with me until the end because the twist will leave you speechless. In a small village surrounded by green hills and flowing streams, everyone knew the story of Adaiza and Chukwudi. They weren't just a couple. They were the couple, the standard, the example every parent pointed to when teaching their children about love. Look at them, the elders would say. That is how marriage should be. Their story began when they were children. Adaiza was only 3 years old when Chukwudi, who was 5, first defended her. A group of older boys had taken her doll and thrown it into the mud. Little Chukwudi marched up to them, his small fists clenched, and demanded they give it back. "Leave her alone," he shouted. "She is my friend." The boys laughed at him, but Chukwudi didn't back down. Even at 5 years old, he had a protective spirit. He retrieved the muddy doll himself, washed it in the stream, and brought it back to Adaiza with a shy smile. From that day forward, they were inseparable. As they grew older, their friendship blossomed into something deeper. Chukwudi would wait for Adaiza after her chores so they could walk to the market together. He carried her water pots when they were too heavy. He saved the sweetest mangoes from his family's tree just for her. Adaiza came from one of the most respected families in the village. Her father was a fair man, known for his wisdom. Her mother was gentle and taught Adaiza to be the same. Adaiza grew into a beautiful young woman, not just in appearance but in character. She was soft-spoken, never raised her voice, and treated everyone with kindness. Chukwudi, on the other hand, came from a humble family. His father was a farmer who worked hard but earned little. But what Chukwudi lacked in wealth, he made up for in character. He was respectful, especially to women. He listened when people spoke. He helped the elderly without being asked. He was the kind of man mothers prayed their daughters would marry. When Chukwudi finally asked Adaiza's father for her marriage in hand, the old man smiled and said, "I've been waiting for this day since you are both children." The village celebrated their engagement like it was a festival. The women sang traditional songs, the men roasted goats and shared palm wine. Children danced in the streets. Finally, the young girls giggled at the stream. The lovebirds are making it official. Their wedding was simple, but filled with love. They couldn't afford a grand ceremony, but they didn't need one. Their friends and family gathered under the ancient Iroko tree in the village square. The elder blessed their union. The choir sang marriage songs that brought tears to everyone's eyes. Adaiza wore a simple wrapper and beads. Chukwudi wore his best white shirt. But the way they looked at each other, that was worth more than all the expensive weddings in the city. "I promise to love you every day of my life," Chukwudi said, holding her hands. "I promise to protect you, to provide for you, to make you smile even on the hardest days." Adaiza smiled through her tears. "And I promise to stand by you, to support you, to build a home filled with peace and joy." After the wedding, their life together was like a beautiful dream. Every morning before dawn, Chukwudi would wake up and go to the stream to fetch water. When Adaiza tried to do it herself, he would gently take the pot from her hands. "The sun is too hot for you, my wife," he would say with a smile. "Let me do this." On days when he came home early from the farm, he would cook for her. They would sit under the big tree in their compound, eating together and talking about their dreams. "One day we'll have children," Chukwudi would say, 3 boys and 3 girls. Adaiza would laugh. "6 children? You want to kill me with childbirth?" "Then we'll have as many as the gods bless us with," he would reply, pulling her close. At night, he sang love songs to her. His voice wasn't perfect, but it was filled with emotion. He sang until her eyes grew heavy and she fell asleep in his arms. When she had nightmares, he held her tighter and whispered, "I'm here. You're safe. I'll always protect you." The women of the village couldn't stop talking about him. At the stream, where they gathered to wash clothes and fetch water, the conversations always turned to Chukwudi. "That man is a blessing," one woman said, scrubbing her wrapper against a stone. "I wish my husband would learn from him." "Learn?" another laughed bitterly. "My husband can't even remember to greet me in the morning." The young girls unmarried would sigh dreamily. "I'm not getting married until I find a man like Chukwudi. Why should I settle for less?" Even the men grudgingly respected him, though somewhat jealous. "Chukwudi is making us look bad," one husband complained to his friends. "My wife keeps asking why I don't fetch water for her like he does." "Mine too," another agreed. "She said if Chukwudi can cook for his wife, why can't I?" But most men admired him. "He's showing us how to be better husbands," an elder said. "We should learn from him, not resent him." Adaiza was the happiest woman in the village. She sang while walking to the market, her voice sweet and clear. She danced while going to the stream, her wrapper swaying with each step. Her joy was contagious. "Why wouldn't she be happy?" the young girls would say as she passed. "She married a real man, a man who treats her like a queen, and we're stuck here with these boys who don't know how to treat a woman." For 2 beautiful years, their marriage was everything a marriage should be. But perfect things don't always last. One rainy morning, when the sky was grey and the air was cold, Adaiza woke up as usual. She turned to greet her husband with a smile. "Good morning, my love," she whispered. But Chukwudi didn't respond. She touched his shoulder and shook him gently. "Chukwudi, wake up. It's morning." Nothing. A small worry began to form in her chest. She shook him harder. "Chukwudi?" Still nothing. Her heart began to race. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. It was cold, too cold. She grabbed his hand. It felt like stone. "No, no, no," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Chukwudi, please, wake up. This isn't funny." But he didn't move. His chest didn't rise and fall. His lips were turning blue. Adaiza's mind refused to accept what she was seeing. She sat beside him on the bed, pulled her knees to her chest, and wrapped her arms around them. She stared at him, waiting for him to wake up, waiting for this nightmare to end. "You're just sleeping deeply," she told herself. "You'll wake up soon. You always wake up." She sat there for hours. The rain pounded on the roof. The room grew darker, but she didn't move. She couldn't move. As evening approached, neighbor Mama Emeka came to check on them. She knocked on the door. "Adaiza, Chukwudi, are you home?" When no one answered, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The sight before her made her blood run cold. Chukwudi lay motionless on the bed, his skin grey. White foam had dried at the corner of his mouth. And Adaiza sat beside him, rocking back and forth, her eyes empty. Mama Emeka's scream pierced the evening air. "She has killed him! She has killed him! Adaiza has killed her husband!" She ran out of the hut screaming and waving her arms. Within minutes, the entire village had gathered. They poured into the compound like a flood, pushing and shoving to see what had happened. When the elders finally made their way inside, they found Chukwudi lying cold on the bed. His lips were blue. White foam had dried at the corner of his mouth. One elder bent down to examine him closely. He sneezed near the body's mouth and shook his head gravely. He stood up and whispered one word that changed everything. "Poison." The crowd outside heard it and exploded with rage. "Poison! She poisoned him! That wicked woman!" "How could she?" "I didn't poison him," Adaiza screamed, finally finding her voice. Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't kill him. I would never hurt him. He's my husband. I love him." But her words were swallowed by the angry shouts of the crowd. Someone picked up a stone and threw it. It hit her shoulder and she stumbled backwards. Another stone followed, then another. They rained down on her like hail. "Stop!" A powerful voice cut through the crowd. Mazio Okafor pushed through the crowd. His back was bent with age. His hair was white as cotton, but his eyes were still sharp and clear. "This is not our way," he shouted. "We do not condemn a person without proof. We do not throw stones without a trial. Have we become animals? The crowd quieted, but their anger was far from gone. It simmered beneath the surface, ready to explode again. Take her to the isolation hut, Maziokafor commanded. Guard her well. In 3 days, we will hold a proper trial. If she is guilty, she will face justice. But we will do this the right way. They dragged Adaiza through the village. People spat at her. They cursed her. They called her a witch, a demon, a murderer. The same people who had praised her just days ago now wanted her dead. The isolation hut sat at the edge of the village, far from the other homes. It was small, dark, and cold. They used it to hold criminals and outcasts before punishment. 2 guards stood outside, their faces blank and emotionless. Through the single small window, Adaiza could see the village preparing for her trial. Men were building a platform in the center of the village square. Others were gathering wood for the pyre. She knew what that meant. They were preparing to burn her alive. For 3 days, she sat alone in that dark hut. No one brought her food. No one brought her water. She grew weaker, thinner. Her voice became hoarse from crying. At night, she could hear the villagers outside, still angry, still talking about her. The way she's crying, you'd think she was innocent, one voice said. They all cry, another replied. Crocodile tears. She killed that good man, and now she wants our sympathy. I still can't believe it, a woman's voice said. Chukudi treated her like a queen. Why would she kill him? Greed, someone answered. Maybe she wanted to marry someone richer. Or maybe she's a witch who needed his blood for rituals. Adaiza pressed her hands over her ears, but she could still hear them. The same people who once celebrated her now believed the worst about her. On the 3rd day, the trial began. They dragged Adaiza to the platform in the village square. She could barely walk. Her legs were weak from lack of food. Her eyes were red from crying. The entire village had gathered, hundreds of faces, all looking at her with hatred and disgust. Maziokafor sat in the center, flanked by other elders. He looked at Adaiza with sadness in his eyes. Adaiza, daughter of this village, he began, you stand accused of murdering your husband, Chukudi, by poison. What do you say? I didn't do it, she whispered. Her voice was so weak, people had to lean forward to hear her. I loved him. I would never hurt him. I don't know what happened. I woke up and he was... She couldn't finish. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. She's lying, someone shouted from the crowd. Burn her, another voice demanded. Bring the fire. Maziokafor raised his hand for silence. Is there anyone who speaks in her defense? Anyone who has evidence of her innocence? Silence. Not a single person stepped forward. Maziokafor sighed deeply. He was about to pronounce judgment when a commotion erupted at the edge of the crowd. Wait! Wait! Voices shouted. Stop the trial! The village youths were dragging a young man through the crowd. He was thin, dirty, and terrified. His hands were tied behind his back. We caught him stealing from the market. He's been robbing people for weeks. What does this have to do with the trial? An elder asked impatiently. Tell them. A youth shoved the thief forward. Tell them what you told us, or we'll throw you in the river. The thief fell to his knees, trembling. I'll talk. Just don't hurt me. Then speak, Maziokafor commanded. The thief took a shaky breath. A man paid me 3 months ago. He paid me a lot of money to help him fake his death. The crowd gasped. What? Maziokafor leaned forward. Explain yourself clearly. The thief continued, his words tumbling out quickly. He bought a special poison from a medicine man in the next town. A poison that makes you look dead, but you're not really dead. Your heart slows down so much you can't feel it. Your skin gets cold. You look exactly like a corpse. But after a few hours, you wake up. This is madness, someone shouted. Let him finish, Maziokafor commanded. The thief said, the man also paid a worker at the mortuary,
paid him to swap the body. So when people came to prepare the body for burial, they take a different dead body instead. A body that would be burned or buried and no one would know. And who was this man? Mazi Okafor's voice was deadly quiet. Who paid you? The thief looked up, his eyes filled with fear. He spoke one name, Chukwudi. The entire village fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. No, someone whispered. That's impossible. Lies, another person shouted. The thief is lying to save himself. Where is he? Mazi Okafor demanded. Where is this man who supposedly paid you? He gave me an address. A rented room in the town of Nkwo. He said he was going to hide there. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Mazi Okafor stood up. Send men to this address, now. If this is true, we will find him. If this is a lie, he looked at the thief with cold eyes. You will wish you had drowned in that river. 6 strong men from the village traveled to Nkwo town that very evening. They found the address the thief had given them. It was a small apartment above a fabric shop. They didn't knock. They broke down the door. Inside, they found him, Chukwudi, alive, healthy, whole, and in his arms was another woman. She was younger than Adaiza, dressed in expensive clothes that Chukwudi could never have afforded before. She screamed when the men burst in. Chukwudi's face went pale. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then he tried to run. But the men grabbed him. They tied his hands and dragged him back to the village like a criminal. When they brought Chukwudi back to the village, the crowd that had wanted to burn Adaiza now turned their rage on him. How could you? You let her suffer. You almost let her die. They brought him before Mazi Okafor. Adaiza was still on the platform, barely conscious. When she saw Chukwudi alive, her eyes widened. She didn't know whether to feel joy or horror. Chukwudi, Mazi Okafor said, his voice heavy with disappointment. We loved you. We respected you. We held you up as an example, and this is what you've done? Chukwudi couldn't look at anyone. He stared at the ground. Why? Mazi Okafor asked. Why would you fake your death? Why would you let your wife be accused of murder? Why? For a long moment, Chukwudi said nothing. Then finally he spoke. Because I never loved her. The pressure from everyone was too much. I did what was right for the village, not what I wanted for myself. The villagers were shocked. They looked at each other in confusion. Didn't we see him treat her like she was the only person in his world? These men will deceive you, another agreed. They are not good people. So you decided to fake your death? Mazi Okafor asked, his voice cold, and let your innocent wife be murdered in your place? Chukwudi finally looked up, and there were tears in his eyes. But they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of self-pity. I didn't think it would go this far, he said weakly. I thought people would just move on. The village punished Chukwudi severely. They stripped him of his respect, his reputation, everything he had valued. They banished him from the village for 5 years. The woman he had run away with left him immediately when she realized he had no money and was now an outcast. But Chukwudi's punishment didn't end there. Eventually, after his banishment, he married another woman, but somehow he could never find peace. He did all the right things, treated her well, but she fought with him every single day. Nothing he did was ever good enough. His life became the very prison he had tried to escape. Meanwhile, Adaiza slowly healed. The village apologized to her. They brought her food, gifts, and prayers. But the damage had been done. She couldn't look at her neighbors the same way. These were the same people who wanted to burn her alive. 2 years later, a wealthy trader named Obi came to the village to buy goats from the king. He saw Adaiza at the market, and something in her gentle spirit drew him to her. He courted her properly. He was patient. He understood that her heart had been broken, and he didn't rush her. When they finally married, he took her to his town, far away from the village that had tried to kill her. He built her a beautiful home. He treated her with the respect and love she deserved. He watched her as if she was his light. He treated her like the queen she was. The truth was simple. Adaiza was easy to love. She was gentle, kind, respectful, and soft-spoken. She hadn't changed. She was the same woman Chukwudi had married. The difference was that Obi genuinely loved her, and Chukwudi was only playing a role. In her new life, Adaiza found real peace. She had children. She built a home filled with genuine love. She smiled again, sang again, danced again. But she never forgot the lesson. The man she had trusted with her whole heart was the one who had tried to destroy her life. The man who held her hand while she slept was the one who betrayed her in the cruelest way possible. Sometimes, the people who smile at you during the day are the ones plotting against you at night. Sometimes, the person who swears to protect you is the one you need protection from. This story teaches us something important. Actions without genuine love are just performances. Chukwudi did everything right, but his heart was never in it, and eventually, a performance always ends. Real love doesn't need an audience. Real love doesn't need applause. Real love is quiet, steady, and true.